Tagwire and stuff like that. So, but it was uh, geared towards creating a path that enables the likes of Tagwire to come in, such that there's going to be that consolidation of power on the side of Emerson Mnangagwa, even if it fails. But by bringing these people in, these people are coming in now to actually take control of everything. So by pushing Emerson Mnangagwa to go to 2030, it was designed to just facilitate this thing. But at the end of the day, it is not merely depending on Emerson Mnangagwa having gone to 2030, but it is depending. It is about the events that are happening now, because these are the events that are being put in place to shape the future. So the coming in of Kudakwasi Tagwire into politics and the kind of political language that is now spewing, it speaks to a gentleman who is now ready to take, the political stage, to be a decisive player politically, and to be a player that works towards the consolidation of whatever gains that these guys have amassed over the years. So yeah, it is quite interesting, and to read about these events, to see these events playing out in real time, because people never thought, never imagined that you could see the likes of Tagwire being brought into the fold and occupying, positions, politically. But these are events that are happening in real time, and they are speaking to the creation of this, dynasty, the one, that is, spoken about, and we are seeing this through this strategic repositioning, of people. This doesn't have the Zimbabwean people at the center of everything, but it has a select few, those few who are enjoying, who are benefiting. It is all about them, and they are looking at this as a long-term, project, and they are looking at this as something that is going to be for the foreseeable, future, and hence we are seeing these movements, taking place.
Yeah, I mean, the issue of a dynasty has been reported extensively. I think Newsworks is written about it. ZimLive, they've written about it. But there's a guy on social media called Majiros. I think Majiros, who has talked about it for years. And the problem with us as the people, we don't pay attention when things are being said. We're easily excitable about other things that are happening. But this issue, Mnangagwa is a serious schemer. Uh, he did not become president by accident. He planned for decades for this. It goes back to the 80s. And this is what General Chiwenga doesn't have. He misses that. The fact that he's an army man, he's a soldier, and is dealing with a politician who was a spy, and who boasts about it, that he knows what's going on. He's a schemer, so he plans ahead of time. When he was removing um, when he made sure that the Chief Justice term limit was removed, he was planning for a time like this. When he removed the presidential running mate clause, he was planning for a time like this. But the general was just sitting there. And whenever we mentioned these things, we were told, "Oh, he will do something about it. He's an army man. He's got the army." But as we have been saying, I said it a week ago that if he removes Sanyatwa, that's the end of the game. In as far as the army is concerned, from where we are seeing it or where we are sitting, and that happened. And when that happened, Mshangwa came yesterday to confirm that, look, this is what we're doing. All the other guys, I call them the political puppies that are shouting about 2030. They are shouting for their supper. They want a space on the feeding trough. President Mnangagwa is very serious when he plans these things, because you see, he puts people that he has relationships with. If you are not Karanga, if you're not from Masvingo or Midlands, you either have a relationship of some sort with him, business, personal, or something, like people like Garwe, who's a former Salute Scout guy and is sounding people that fought during the liberation struggle. Yeah, so let me step down and allow others to speak.
Oppo, just a quick
Right.
question. So, do you, according to your knowledge, was there that gentleman agreement between ED and Chwengwa that he would take over, as people always say? Do you think there was ever that agreement between the two?
MNANGAGWA categorically said there was no agreement that he will spend a first term. Chiwenga's people said that they had that agreement. Then he rolled over into the second term, and the natural thing was for Chiwenga to then take over. But MNANGAGWA has shown how ruthless he is. He doesn't care. He doesn't keep promises. And Chiwenga, I'm writing my book.
Right. Guys, can we move over to to the address? I think it's starting now. Just give me a second. There's no sound. He's there, but there's no sound.
Stronger with you, the new parfum, Emporio Money.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing, that is coming through. There's nothing. But I'm seeing that, there's 5 videos on his official. But the 5th video, we can't see. I can't see it. I don't know the mofuni.
Yeah, I'm trying. But
I've been sent a link. Let me see if this link works. I've been sent a link. I've seen someone, sending a link. Okay, and it's the replay. So yeah, right. But there's nothing there. I don't know if there's an update on his thing.
On
his official account, there isn't anything anyway.
Yeah, but to me, when I'm looking at it, it's saying Kutizo, there's 5 videos, right? But there are only 4 that are visible at the present moment.
Yeah, it's definitely not live.
It's definitely not yet there.
So what's this one under Tumiro? No, that's the one.
I see you.
This is the one he was announcing.
I want this he hasn't uploaded yet. You know, as he hasn't uploaded, but Geza is, he's missing out on his, 2030, watershed, right? He's missing out on his 2030 watershed, right?
Exactly. No matter what, you're not 2030 finish.
Right. Okay. Wopo, sorry for cutting you short. On that one, you can.
The fifth one.
Right.
So that's why it's showing 5.
Oh.
Is this the one about dating for single and older men?
No, it says membership Tuesdays. That disabled lady. That's why it's showing 5. It's actually only got 4. But I'm wondering, why Mkaduyu has been able to
get there.
A short reel.
Right. Okay. So he hasn't started speaking, or they haven't uploaded it yet.
All right. So I mean, we wait. So Wopo, if you can come in. Sorry for cutting you short. Right there. If you can come in and respond to the question that was asked.
I can't remember what was the question.
I tried that if you can,
Yeah, it was just between this talk of gentleman's agreement. Chiwenga would take over.
Yes.
And then what would be Chiwenga thinking right now? Like if there was that.
Chiwenga, if you want to know what Chiwenga is thinking, you need to go back to I think it was I can't remember if it was the Politburo or the Central Committee. Yeah, it was the Central Committee. When MNANGAGWA was speaking, you could see that Chiwenga was shaking with rage, but he had to contain himself. He's an angry man right now. I was talking to some people in the military yesterday. These are people that are usually, buoyant. They are confident. But yesterday, they were sort of, you could see that speaking to them on the phone, they were demoralized. I spoke to one of them today who said to me, I'm so tired mentally, I need to sleep. Some of them feel defeated. I don't know how General Chiwenga feels at the moment, but some of them feel defeated. As I said earlier, I think for the general, the plausible option that is left now is a moment of surprise. Maybe if he has, unless if the soldiers, if the generals are pretending to be with Mnangagwa and then they will present a moment of surprise where we'll just wake up and the whole country is taken over by soldiers. I doubt that very much because, in Zimbabwe, money matters. The person who's loyal to General Chiwenga is General Sanyatwe, and he was removed. He's now a sports minister, just like Coventry was. I mean, the position...
Right, Wobo, sorry, if you can hold. Kumana. What I didn't
Yeah, so I was saying that General Sanyat was put in a sports ministry. That's how demoted he was. If Emerson Mnangagwa was serious about respecting this gentleman that helped him get into power, he would have done a reshuffle, put Opam Chungura somewhere else, and put General Sanyatwa at defense. But he didn't do that because, as Mchangwa said to the nation yesterday, they were emasculating these guys because they are not loyal to the president. And the president was putting people that were loyal to him. So for people to understand, Zimbabwean politics is very tribal. Zimbabweans pretend that they are not tribal, but they are very, very tribal. So the head of the army, or of the defense forces, of all the defense forces, Air Force, Ground Force, is General PV Sibanda, who is Edie's cousin, and is Karanga, and is from the Midlands. The head of the army now is General Matutu, who is Karanga, who comes from the Midlands. He comes from Kwekwe, Edie comes from. is ZAPU. PV Sibanda is ZAPU. Why am I mentioning this? Mnangagwa is decimating the Zandla command in the military because it is loyal to Chiwenga, who is Zandla. He's bringing in the ZAPU command who felt that they were not getting the promotions. But this the ZAPU command that is bringing in is not Ndebele, it's Karanga, it is people. So he's looking for loyalty, is what Mshangwa said. If you look at the key positions in government, they are all his clansmen. Some pretend to be Manyika because they grew up in Manyika like Opa, but she's actually Karanga from Zimunya. So the president is a tribalist. This is what Zimbabweans need to understand. And when the coup was taking place, one of the things that Mugabe did was to remind Chiwenga that he was going to turn this country upside down because Emerson is a tribalist. That's what Mugabe said. And Mugabe sent Gideon Gono to speak to Chiwenga because Mugabe's plan was to give the baton to Sekramai, not to Mnangagwa. He was doing it not because Mnangagwa is Karanga, but because of his traits, his behavior, which is what we've now seen. He said Mnangagwa is a crook. That's what Mugabe said. But he was an important crook to Mnangagwa, to Mugabe, because he helped Mugabe to stay in power, because Mnangagwa is a thug. Mugabe said to Professor Kahari, Professor Kahari said, why do you keep this guy? And Mugabe said to Professor Kahari, he gets things done. If I ask all these other guys like Sekramai, 2-3 days, nothing has been done, but this young man gets things done. That's why he was there. When Mugabe lost the election to Morgan Tsvangirai, it was Mnangagwa who went in there. When the opposition was giving them problems, it was Mnangagwa who captured the opposition and paid opposition members. You see, Tsvangirai's spokesperson was the MP for Mavuku. James Maridadi is now Mnangagwa's ambassador. Do you think that it was accidental? All these things, it was Mnangagwa who was doing them. And it helped Mugabe to stay in power as long as it did. But Mnangagwa was not doing it for Mugabe. He did not save Mugabe in 2008 for wanting to save Mugabe. He was doing it for himself because he knew that the pathway to get to presidency has to come through ZANU-PF and through Mugabe. That's why they killed General Solomon Mjuru and then got rid of his wife. The same methodology that they used against Mai Mjuru, if Chiwenga doesn't fight back, is the same methodology that they are going to use against him, and they'll get rid of him. It will be so easy to get rid of him if he doesn't fight back. So I think where we are, we need to understand that as Zimbabweans, politicians use us and they knock onto emotional doors like tribe, ethnicity. When they say they are the Zulu, it's not that they are doing it for the Zulus or for Karangas or for Ndebeles or for Manyikas. They just use that emotional thing because they know that people are gullible. So you start saying, Wekwedu Apinda, as if he's eating on your behalf. I want to give your listeners an example of how tribe is so useless and ethnicity is so useless in politics, and yet it's used. One of the kingpins in Masvingo was Edson Zobo. Edson Zobo played the Karanga card, but Edson Zobo was actually not Karanga. Edson Zobo was Ndao. His father moved to Masvingo as a priest. And so he played the Karanga card. He became the godfather of Masvingo. And I remember when I first spoke to him about this in 1992 at Chevron Hotel, he was telling me all these stories, and everyone else that he spoke to about this thing, he would use the same line. I've spoken to a couple of people that had the privilege of speaking to him about issues about ethnicity in politics in ZANU-PF and so forth, he would say, but usazotaura izvozvo unondikwadzisa because ndikangozikanwa chete kuti handisi mukaranga ndaparara, because they use it as a card, emotional card, knowing that citizens are gullible. And I'll repeat what I said in Shona for those that do not understand Shona. Edson Zobo would say to me, explain to me that he's not Karanga, he's Ndau. And then the last line that he said to me and many others that he spoke to about this thing, he said, please don't speak about this. If you speak about it, I'll be destroyed. Because they use ethnicity to whip up emotions. So Mnangagwa, you'll see very soon you'll start using ethnicity again to whip up emotions. But if you go to my village in Murewa, where the Zulus live, and if you go to Mapanzure, which is Mnangagwa's village, you'll find that my village is even much better in terms of development than where he comes from. They don't care about their ethnic brothers and sisters. They just use that card to whip emotions so that they can continue stealing. So Tagure is Karanga, is going to come in, and what the conversation that's taking place is that no other tribe should come in. They're saying the Zulu should not be allowed to come in because Chiwenga is a Zulu. They're saying the Zulus at their time, because Mugabe was in power for 37 years. But if you look at the suffering of the Zulus and Karangas, it's the same. If you look at the Ndebeles, Manikas, they're all suffering. They all don't have access to clean drinking water. They all don't have hospitals. They all don't have jobs. They all suffer from the highest inflation in the world. They all suffer from, all these inflictions that we suffer from as a country. So I think ultimately, to come back to the point and land, General Chiwenga will have to literally show his balls if he wants to get this. Otherwise, it's gone, as far as I'm concerned. If he doesn't fight, it is gone. And as I say it again, for the benefit of those that joined after I'd said it, he has three options. A coup, which is now far-fetched because his right-hand man, General Sanyat, was removed. An uprising, which is also far-fetched because people will go into the streets when there's a security guarantee that they will not be killed, and Emerson will not hesitate to use guns because he also understands this. And the third option is Emerson Mnangagwa waking up dead, which again is an act of God. So you can't really base your ascension to power through an act of God. What if it doesn't happen?
That is quite, interesting, right there. I think we still have got a lot, to learn about what is going on in Zimbabwe, because it seems as if, there's more to this than, meets the eye. Right. Can I bring in, another speaker? Leonard, do you want to come in?
Yes, Uncle Jed, thank you. It's just a quick question from Koma Hopo. Would in the event that these three options that you have presented have not worked, would a Chiwenga Chamisa coalition work in favor of the general? 6 months, 9 months later, the three options have not materialized. Would there be a possibility that General Chiwenga defects from ZANU-PF and join hands with the popular opposition movement under Chamisa, and they fight Emerson Mnangagwa?
It's an attractive proposition, which is very highly unlikely, and I'll explain why. When you leave ZANU-PF, it's difficult to fight from outside. We have seen it with Maim Juru. We have seen it with Jonathan Moyo. We have seen it with many other people, including original ZANU-PF founders like Tekere. It's difficult to fight from outside because when you're fighting ZANU-PF, you're fighting money, you're fighting the military, which is power, and you've got to have money and you've got to have power. Unless if General Chiwenga has got people that are loyal to him inside the military, and he can deal with the rigging of the elections. If you saw the last elections, they were not rigged by the army, it was FAS. And that was deliberate. Mnangagwa wanted to establish his own independence because in 2018 and 2017, it was the army that did it for him. And they kept reminding him. So he wanted to be independent of that institution. So he created FAS, which was outside ZANU-PF, outside state institutions, outside state security, but run by people loyal to him within those institutions. If you've been listening, if you've been paying attention the past 3 years, Mnangagwa and his people have been talking about Chamisa in ethnic terms, saying, Mwana okumusha, mkomo wangu, this and that. If you remember the speech that was made by Chief Charumbira, when he said it's time for Karangas now and Zezure at that time, and Nelson has verbalized this to me as well. You know, when he talks about the Zurus and Karangas and so forth, because he's a product of that political system. And even when he whispers against people like me, he talks about us as the Zurus, although I'm not even the Zuru. You know, so I don't think Nelson will team up with Chiwenga to fight his brother, as he calls him. That won't happen. The option that is likely is if there is another strong opposition that is set up between now and the next election, if it happens, which is very strong. So when I'm talking about strong, I'm not totally talking about Mickey Mouse people who are in the opposition now. I'm talking about bringing heavyweights who are not necessarily in Zimbabwe to work with elements that are disgruntled, that are in the army. That might work. The third thing is that what kind of change would a Chiwenga president supported by the opposition, what kind of change will it bring? I want to share something that is often misused and people lie about it because George lied about it. In 2018, a Congolese businessman who owned mines in Bindura asked me to come with the British and EU ambassador. It was Catriona Lang and Van Dam was the EU ambassador to meet with the vice president. And I was reluctant. He said, no, let's go. You're always bashing these guys. Let's go so that you talk, you tell them what you think. It was in August after the election. So we went to his office and we spoke. And I explained that if you want your government to succeed, you have to put a people agenda on the table. And he asked me, what is this agenda? And then I explained to him that institutions must reform, the media must be reformed, you should stop attacking civil society and seeing them as enemies and so forth. The British ambassador was there when I was saying all these things. The EU ambassador was there. The general then took me to meet the president. And there was what's his name, former agriculture minister, Perence Shiri, and I repeated the same thing. And when we came out of that meeting, Perence Shiri put his hand around me and he said, young man, you've got balls. You told him the things that very few of us are able to say. But I doubt if he was going, if he was taking them seriously. That's what Perence Shiri said to me. And true to what Perence Shiri said to me, they were never taken seriously. What the British ambassador had suggested was not taken seriously. What I had suggested was not taken seriously. What the EU ambassador had suggested was not taken seriously. We thought at that point in time they meant well. My sense is that ED had a plan already about how he was going to decimate the country, looting and all that stuff. At that point in time, I thought as well that the general was interested in listening and understanding, um, and perhaps pursuing an agenda that would make him look good in the eyes of the people. Because after that meeting, George Charamba did what he always does. He was in those meetings. He gave the story to a Sunday Mail reporter, who then lied about what had happened in that meeting, in those two meetings. And I phoned this Congolese businessman and I said, look, you asked me and these two ambassadors to go and talk to your friends, but look what they're doing now. They're using this for propaganda, and yet we thought we were speaking to them in good faith. We want the country to move forward. And I then got a call it was a Monday from the general, very upset about what George had done. And he asked me to come to his office, and I said I can't because I'm at a funeral. I can't come to your office. Then I went the next day, and those are the only two times I've ever met him. And he said to me, "Oh, this Sunday Mail thing." And then I explained he didn't even know what George had done. And then I explained to him that we came to speak to you with the ambassadors in good faith, but look, they're now using it for propaganda, and so forth. And he said, no, 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 we're going to sort that out. But somebody who knows him said to me, no, he's surrounded by people like Charamba and so forth, and they don't want this agenda to the progressive agenda to be on the table. That's why George Charamba now started attacking me with an article in the Herald in February, I think February 2019, saying that I was pushing an agenda to bring the Americans in and all that rubbish that he says all the time. So he's surrounded by retrogressive people that do not want to see change in Zimbabwe. The reason why they don't want to see change in Zimbabwe is because they prefer a chaotic environment like the one we have. If change comes even from within ZANU-PF, it deprives them of the opportunity to loot, to plunder the country. So they don't want that. So my sense is that the people that surround the general are problematic. Some of them are very problematic. And again, I repeat, George Charamba is very problematic. That's why when the GEZA thing started, I said, you know what, I'm not very excited about this because of the people that are around the vice president. He had an opportunity to show that he was different from Emerson Mnangagwa, but he didn't seize on that opportunity. He had an opportunity to go out there and work with. There are so many Zimbabweans that I know that went through his office that wanted to do good. Some that are executives in America and Britain, high positions and so forth. Last year, I went to a country in West Africa, and one of the senior ministers, they said to me, "Oh my God, your country is now very, very corrupt. What's going on with the president? You know, there's so much corruption." So this is a virus that is in the system, and we must be prepared for worse if Mnangagwa prevails. If Chiwenga prevails, he will need good people around him that can help him. He's a soldier. He's not a technocrat. He's not a politician. So he will need good people around him, competent people that will assist him. And that is what he needed right now. When Emerson Mnangagwa carried out his coup, I was before the coup, a year before the coup, I had a meeting with the British ambassador and we were talking about other things. And then she said to me, "Oh, it's Emerson's time." And what it showed me was that his team of which is in the business sector, in corporate sector, like Edwin Manikai, people like Herbert Ngala, they've been working the diplomatic corps. They've been talking to diplomats. They've been talking to governments. I don't see that with Vice President Chiwenga. If he's doing it, then it's very secret. I don't see it. But at least with Emerson, it was visible. You could see it. Me and a friend who was working for the
Sorry, Opo, if I may just ask a question there, if you're okay with that.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, thanks. So I do get the sentiments that you're expressing about Chiwenga, but I think if we're to look back to 2017, you would have shared similar, though not identical, sentiments about the now president Emerson Mnangagwa, and I think most people would have been hopeful at that point. But I'm just thinking, if one is to say your analysis of him back then was wrong, and if it was wrong back then, why then should anyone take your appearing to be an endorsement of Chiwenga? I'm not saying you're endorsing him, but I'm very live to the fact that this is just your analysis. But if I was listening to you and I listened to you in 2017, I'll be wondering, you got it wrong there. Why should I be listening to you now? Why should I even consider what you're saying right now? That's what I'm just wondering.
You don't have to consider what I'm saying. I'm simply explaining and telling you my experience with these guys when I interacted with them. You can believe what you want. The information that I'm putting on the table is in order for you to be able to come up with a position. I'm not giving you a position. I'm saying to you, the whole world, except for very few people, if people are going to be honest, the whole world got it wrong with Emerson. And the reason why they got it wrong was because people were so fed up of Robert Mugabe. They were so fed up of Robert Mugabe. Anything but Robert Mugabe. That's why it's so disappointing today that we have a situation where our citizens are now saying Robert Mugabe was better. Nobody thought that, anyone could be worse than Robert Mugabe. The point I'm making to you is that these people are all from ZANU PF. It's a culture of governance in ZANU PF. There's a culture of governance. So I'm saying to you, to think that somebody from the same institution is going to be extremely different from the other, and also based on what we have seen with the 2017 coup, it will be a bit outlandish. You see, if you look at everyone in ZANU-PF who's in cabinet today, they're all involved in corruption scandals. So what you can hope for is to say maybe Chiwenga's corruption will be slightly different from Mnangagwa's corruption, but not to think that he won't be corrupt. Because there are so many corruption scandals that he has been involved in when he was the military and when he was vice president. At one point, in fact, if people trace Tagure's journey, Tagure started off with Simon Mzenda. When Simon Mzenda was running what was called Murefu Petroleum, one of the garages was on Beatrice Road, on Simon Mazoreza Road. And then he moved to the Mjurus when Mzenda died. And then after the Mjurus, he then moved to the soldiers with Commander Agriculture. And he was now dealing with the Chiwengas, SB Moyes, and so forth. When they thought that Chiwenga was going to die and he was in China, he moved to Emerson Mnangagwa. So the reason why I'm telling you all this is that there is a trail of corruption around or following all these top leaders. So it's not to say that Chiwenga is going to be very different in terms of corruption. He talks about corruption. This is against corruption when he speaks, when he talks about Ganandas. And so is Mnangagwa. So was Mugabe. They all spoke about against corruption. But we should not look at what they say. We should look at what they do. If we're going to look at Mugabe, this is a man who gave his daughter 21 farms. If we are going to look at Mnangagwa, I don't even need to explain this. If you look at Chiwenga, again, he's been involved in corruption scandals. So nobody can tell you that they can foresee the future, that this guy is going to be kosher. No, we made a mistake thinking so that we could in 2017. And even the opposition political elites are corrupt. You see, corruption is not about political parties in Zimbabwe. It's just about the political elites. Some are less corrupt because they don't have access to the resources to practice their corruption. If you go back to the GNU days, you will find that Elias Nzuri was fired as energy minister because of corruption, but it was not pronounced as such. But he was involved in energy, in petroleum deals. If you look at the deal that brought Billy Rottenberg's what is it Sumbanze or Chirezi, where they do the ethanol stuff. It involved the opposition as well. So we shouldn't treat corruption as something that just belongs to one person. Mnangagwa is more corrupt today because he has more power. Others are less corrupt because they have less power. If they get more power, they could be more corrupt. But I wouldn't want to say that if Mnangagwa, if let's say Chiwenga teamed up with Nelson Chamisa, things are going to be very, very, very different. I wouldn't say so. What happened during the GNU was that there was the goodwill factor. Goodwill matters. People that were afraid to invest or to bring their money into Zimbabwe started doing so because Zimbabwe had dollarized. So there was not a lot of activity and improvement that happened, like factories were suddenly opening and all that. They just dollarized, and it stabilized prices, and people could bring in their money and things like that.
Right, guys. If you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand, and then I'll bring you onto the platform to ask the question. Some of you guys' mics have got feedback. I don't know. Kuti munenge muchiita sei nemamics enyu. I'm yet to figure out what will be happening. But yeah, let us just do that. So can I bring in the next person to ask you a question whilst we are waiting for Geza? Right. Can I bring in TI? TI, do you want to come through? T1, sorry, not TI. T1. T1, are you there?
I'm there, Ngojet.
Yeah,
good evening to you today.
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm good, my man. Right, I need to get you back a bit, and my question is directed to the Hope. It's actually a comment on his options that Chiwenga to rise to presidency. Well, inini, from my knowledge of the military, the position of the army commander is not very instrumental in the happenings of a military coup. Vakomana vekuzasi avo ndo vane influence. Ngatiti isusu from the brigade commanders and below. Normally the general duty soldiers, not the officers kunyanya. We have seen coups happening worldwide, and the most influential rank, the most participating rank is a captain. So we are saying Kuchinja army commander is not that effective in avoiding a coup. Rather, having brigade commanders rotating, those atingati susu is stopping a coup. Docheptanga. So Chipiri, we would want to say kuti the former army commander Sanyatwe was demoted to the post of a minister of sports. I would want to have a different view. While people think Kuti Sanyatwa is more aligned to Chiwenga than Mnangagwa, I would beg to differ. Why do I say so? Sanyatwa was in into retirement, akaenda kunoita ambassador, what. He was brought back by who? It was MNANGAGWA who brought him back to lead the military. Achi retire, this one, akaenda ku DRC kunoita ambassador, Mutape. Right. Being the case, Sanyato Abba Ipapo, when he is being retired from the army to lead the Ministry of Sport, regaiti kuraudza kuti uku kuitisana mari. This guy will retire with his full benefits, and when he's out there, he's enjoying his full benefits, the power lieutenant general, then he also goes to get package yake a ministerial post. So while some are saying he was demoted, this may be a platform of relaunching him into a very powerful post. But Apano sport for the meantime. This is my contribution. I can as well add on Canada to hope to respond up. Thank you, Angojet.
Right. So, do you see, the moving of Sanyatwe from the army commander to being the minister of sport as not a demotion, but as a way of getting him to, to get a pension?
Financially, he has benefited more than he was doing Adipau Army Commander.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay. I want to debunk the first point. I'm currently reading a book by Professor Miles Tent, who's a Zimbabwean, who's a professor at the University of Oxford. It's called The Overthrow of Robert Mugabe: Gender, Coups, and Diplomats. It was released on February 15. You should go and buy it. It's a very good read. Coups that have been successful in Africa were carried out by generals, not by middle-ranking officers. Middle-ranking officers have carried out more coups, but they were less successful than those carried out by generals. This is not an opinion, it's a fact. You cannot argue with that point because it's based on empirical evidence. Of all the coups that have been carried out in Africa, you actually don't need to go and read that book. Just go on Google and check. That fact is there. So it banks your point. And then coming to the issue of the commanders that you're talking about, Emmerson Mnangagwa removed all the commanders that were appointed by Robert Mugabe. All the commanders that are there now were appointed by Emmerson Mnangagwa, not by Robert Mugabe. So they are loyal to the person who appointed them. The way commanders are appointed is that the CDF goes to the president and recommends that, Chef, there's this one, I recommend that it becomes brigadier general or major general or whatever it is. And all those key positions are held by people that were appointed by President Mnangagwa, not by President Mugabe. So those that were loyal to General Chiwenga were all removed, and to coup-proof, he got rid of all the people that helped him to do the coup. So that point falls away. Then the second point of General Chiwenga or General Sanyatwa, you can't tell me that you are a commander of a country's army and you are made a sports minister and you say that you are being set up for big things. What big things? What else can he be other than being a minister or other than being a vice president? What else can he be? He has got 2 pensions already. He was in the army as commander of the Presidential Guard. He's the guy who carried out the coup. His soldiers were the ones who carried out the coup. That's why you heard him talk about 45 degrees and all that nonsense. And he left and he became a diplomat. He became Zimbabwe's ambassador in Tanzania. And he came back, there was some bargaining that was taking place. General Chiwenga managed to get him back into the army. I don't think we can argue for whatever we think of Chris Mchanga with his point that the president has put people that are loyal to him in positions to command the army. I don't think President Mnangagwa would still allow Mchangwa to be spokesperson this evening if what he said yesterday was a lie. It's self-evident, guys, that this guy was removed because he's loyal to Chiwenga. This guy, ongari munyaya wa Chiwenga, pakarambwa Mary na Chiwenga ndiye akaendesa 10 cents. That's how close they were. So we can share opinions, but I'm just looking at what happened. What we predicted would happen, it then happened. We can share opinions about those. I respect your opinion, no disrespect, but I don't share the same opinion. And I don't think that someone would go in front of global media and say that the president removed this one because he wanted to put his loyal people. That's disrespect. Why would the president want to disrespect somebody that is actually trying to set up for big things? And why would he put him as a sports minister? If I was a president, and I'm sure the majority of people here will agree with me, if I was a president, I would have done a cabinet reshuffle, put Sanyatko in defense, put Maim Chinguri somewhere, energy or somewhere else, and not disrespect him to say you're going to be a sports minister. Sports minister, you're a junior in government. That's why it was given to Kesty.
So I don't know if you saw his body language here, General Senyatwa, the outgoing, swearing in Ningi. He looked positive. Is he just playing a long game? Because his body language was actually surprisingly positive for somebody who would think he's being demoted.
I try to avoid those areas because I'm not a specialist. I'm not an expert in those areas. You know, some people that read body language, they will be the best people to talk about. I'm not very good at that. You know, I don't know him that well to say that this is how he behaves. There are some people that behave in a certain way even when they are under pressure. And there are certain people that can't hide their anger, like Chiwenga, as we saw when Mnangagwa was reading his statement in the Central Committee. You could see that the guy is angry. His mind, his body was telling him that you should clap because everyone is clapping. He tried to clap, but he stopped because, you know, the mind and the body were not coordinating. But to say that Sanyatwe, they could have been playing a game. This is just perception and opinions, and it's a gray area for me that I wouldn't want to go into because I'm not an expert in those areas.
Right. I've received, a comment from somebody who is deep in the Zimbabwean political, matrix. They've said, they're listening into this space, and they said, you see, Gerard, our type of politics is not a marketplace of opinions like we are seeing, my brother. Instead, from my experience, it is the battleground of systems where the unlearned wield slogans like swords, while the wise study the rules of power, the currents of influence, and the architecture of change. The tragedy of modern politics in Zimbabwe, especially, is not that men fight for what they believe, but that so many fight without ever truly seeing the board on which the game is played. To shout ideology is easy. To decipher the silent machinery of power, that is statesmanship. Listening to this, comment that is coming via, my DM, what are your thoughts in terms of the actual understanding of politics that the majority of the Zimbabwean people have at this moment in time, given everything, that is going on in Zimbabwe?
I think when I read social media commentary, I agree with that comment. And because a lot of people don't fight for ideas and a cause, they fight for personalities. So you find that Chiwenga's people will be fighting in his corner. You find that he's got his own sycophants. Chamisa's people in their corner, he's got his own sycophants. Mnangagwa's people in their corner, he's got his own sycophants. And when you go deeper, those people have no ideological rooting at all. They're supporting someone who has not even necessarily given them a policy document. They don't know what the person they're supporting stands for. They are just supporting them because they like them. Regardless of the failures of that person, whether it's ZANU or opposition, we haven't matured to a point where we have civilized politics, where we discuss with each other. If I disagree with you, I must destroy you. I must kill you because you have disagreed with my point of view. That's the kind of politics that we have. Whereas in other countries, they have the kind of politics where they can go and have a drink and have dinner after disagreeing in parliament. In Zimbabwe, there are people that are friends across the political board, but they are afraid of being seen together. It means that our politics is backward. Chiwenga is not fighting for it's not an ideological battle. He just wants to be president. Emerson Mnangagwa was not fighting for an ideological battle. The core principles of ZANU in 1963 are no longer the core principles today. The current president is one of the biggest thieving presidents ever in the history of Africa. But he talks about revolution. And his core base, his social base, they jump up and down. Kuti nyika ino yakauya neropa. You know, if that's true that nyika ino yakauya neropa, then he shouldn't be in power because he's abusing the sacrifices of the people that fought for the country. But because we don't fight for ideas, we don't fight for ideology, we don't fight for principles, we don't fight for policy, all those things don't matter. So I agree with that point that, you know, to some extent, the
Right. I think I've lost you in right there. I don't know whether you've received a phone call, but I can't hear you at the present moment. Right. Whilst we are waiting for GEZA at the present moment. Oh dear. Right. We are waiting for GEZA at the present moment. But Dr. Ian, do you want to come in?
Hey, Uncle, how are you doing? I hope you guys can hear me.
Yeah, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Super. So I'd actually wanted to firstly compliment your speaker, Daddy Hope. It's quite refreshing to get a very nice chronological, canonical approach to some of the events that have happened over time and how they collate to certain perspectives and how they can be interpreted. So I found that firstly refreshing, but I wanted to raise or perhaps pick his mind on some points that he had raised earlier on. And the first one, of course, was, I think it was preempted by Neje to say that in our analysis of MNANGAGWA in 2017, we were all hopeful. I put my hat in that very hopeful ring. Being in SA, he had a meeting here at the embassy and they organized a nice big venue and so forth. I was part of those people that were there wanting to engage with a great hope, for what we would have anticipated. And I'm sure many were in that. But the question then lies in the fact that if at that point we read the room wrong, so to speak, and we now have a leader that is categorically worse off than the one that we all rallied together to remove, what then is any kind of guarantor that the discussions now around a leader coming from that same pool to really bring about the change and the dispensation? And then he mentioned something quite interesting, which I think sort of answers the question to some extent, and that was the issue of the culture, the leadership culture that these individuals are groomed under, and whether it actually has the focus, the prioritization, and the impetus to really transition the country to where it needs to be, or is just a case of Ngomandio and Dio, just a different driver. And so the question then is, to what extent does general bring in a different culture? And then thirdly, the point that we keep mentioning in our discourse around corruption, we always tend to encapsulate this, and this was probably around about the 2017 where it was, this term floated to the top, the people around an individual. We said that concerning Mugabe. And again, I think we tend to be saying that again concerning MNANGAGWA and even concerning, General Chiwenga. And I think to a certain extent, we need to actually hold the individuals accountable and stop necessarily deflecting to the Taguires or deflecting to the apparatus that is around the general that somehow, quote and unquote, disempowers him from being or doing anything. In that case, at what point then does he become qualified for higher office if he cannot deal at a lower office with, all these so-called people around him that cause him not to be able to, act and participate, decisively in terms of where his position is, and so forth. And yes, I do understand that as the piece that you read earlier, it's about having a deeper appreciation of where the power bases are. And he's been in the party long enough. He participated in the liberation. He should understand, how to transition the power, if at all. His name is, in the ring. From what I can see, I don't think much of that. I think he's more of a consequential leader than he is somebody that is really the driving force behind the change matter, unless I've read it wrong and GEZA is someone that, being a military person, is having their strings pulled by the erstwhile general. So I just wanted to get that perspective. And thank you again for mentioning the issue around the tribalism, because my question in all of this was, surely the enemy of your enemy is your friend. And when your enemy is down and your enemy's enemy is about to, you add your 3 cents to that process. But there's been a significant lull or quietness coming from the quarters of opposition. But you've given a good perspective of the tribal aspect that perhaps explains one part. Perhaps there are more factors on that. So I just wanted to get a perspective from you, Daddy Hope, in terms of, does the general, given the ZANU-PF leadership culture, really fit the bill, given our experience of 2017 to now? Or are we just hoping that in the process of changing, we as a electorate gain the, how do I call it, the muscle memory, and maybe that will jog us into a space of democracy. I'd like to hear your opinions.
Thank you so much. I think in terms of where people like you and I want the country to be, at the moment there are no leaders that have exhibited those skills or perspectives or provided a vision of where the country should be. In other countries, you'd find that competing forces in the ruling party or the opposition leader and his party would be providing a blueprint of where they want to take the country. But in Zimbabwe, there's no such thing that is well pronounced. These things, they come out when it's only election time through a manifesto. But if you remember, ED is not somebody who is really interested in taking the country forward to a point that for the first time in the history of our electoral politics in Zimbabwe, the ruling party did not have a manifesto. ZANU-PF didn't even have a manifesto. He didn't even bother to have a manifesto. is something that Mugabe at least took seriously, although he would then not implement most of the key things that were in that manifesto. So and General Chiwenga was part of that team. This is what I mean when I say Zimbabwean politics is more emotional and not rooted in ideology, policy, or principle. How many times do you see people on social media talking about the position on solar of their leader, the position of their leader on solar, whether it's opposition or whether it's ZANU-PF? How many times have you heard them talk about roads, hospitals? I often give this example because it really disappoints me. Um, ZANU-PF, I know it's already bad, but I turned to the opposition. At a time when I went to Geneva, most of you would remember I gave a speech at the United Nations talking about how Zimbabwe did not even have a single radiotherapy machine. And that has been the case for 3 years. I got one in California. I went to the opposition leader and said, look, there is this um, company that has offered this machine. You have got big hospitals in every city. In Harare, you've got about 9 clinics that are the size of half the size of a big hospital. I will assist in getting the machine here, but they want to talk to you guys because you are the administrators. Nothing was done. This company said they wanted to talk to the health advisory board for the presidential for the opposition leader. There was nothing. I knew that going to ZANU-PF would be a waste of time, but I did. But ZANU-PF said, "Oh, okay, would really like that, but this is the wrong time because if you bring it in, people will start following you. They will start you use that for politics." I got 40 pieces of dialysis machines in Birmingham. Again, the same thing from both sides. I met a cardiovascular surgeon who told me on a plane that they did not have, the whole country did not have a single bypass machine. And this young man is practicing in Cape Town. He said, Amkoma, the people that come for heart surgery in Cape Town, I do it. And my team of nurses are Zimbabwean. And I said, what do you need? He said, I need this machine. And I said, how much is it? He told me the price, 700,000. I said, okay, I'll go and see if I can talk to some people. I went dinner with Zimbabwean millionaire Shingai Mtasa, and I told him about it. He said he was coming up with some health center. I spoke to the European Union. They said it's something that they would consider. I then spoke to the opposition leader and gave him a plan to say this is what you need to do. But I've done my bit. You now need to do the administrative work because you are the guys in government. When I say government, I'm talking about local government. Most of our people think that government is just ZANU-PF. Today, we have opposition in government because they run local government and they run Beatrice Hospital, they run Wilkins Hospital. I said one of these hospitals can then be used to be a heart surgery center. We get this machine through the EU. It comes in. If the cardiovascular surgeon comes back from Cape Town, is agreed that he would come back, and he is based there. He has his private practice at Wilkins. You allow him to use the machine for his private patients, and in return, he does pro bono work for public patients. And the cardiovascular surgeon said, Mkoma, it's something that we should think about pursuing. Nothing happened. Go and even ask the Harare mayor, Jacob Mafume. He will tell you that I had these conversations with them. I'm not making this stuff up. I went to, when I got the 40 dialysis machines, I went to the current political officers at the British Embassy. They came to my home to discuss. There was a new guy who was coming. And they said, oh, we thought we should pass by and introduce you. You're one of the big journalists in this country. We want you to meet this guy. And then I said, oh, by the way, there's a Zimbabwean who's an engineer in the NHS in Birmingham. She has offered me these machines, but they need a water plant. They said, okay, It's something that we can work on, considering that they're coming from our country. I gave that to the opposition leader. Go and ask him. I gave him that. I wrote a paper. I got 10 fire engines in the UK and 10 ambulances. I phoned the opposition leader when I was with the benefactor. Again, they failed to do that. That's why I'm giving all these examples to explain that the culture in Zimbabwe is not about competency. It's not about doing what is good for the people. It's about people's personal political ambitions to either become president or to become a government minister. If you say these things, they come after you. You will see tomorrow, for having explained this on the Twitter space, they'll be attacking me tomorrow. That's the nature of our politics, and it's not just about ZANU-PF. That's why Dr. Solomon Guramatunu said the problem in Zimbabwe is no longer ZANU-PF. The problem in Zimbabwe is the mindset. The leaders reflect the way the people think, because the people are the ones who are the sycophants of these leaders in ZANU-PF and in the opposition. So, I don't. As I wrote in my analytical piece 4 days ago, looking at the events leading up to M31, I mentioned that people are not saying they are ready to have Chiwenga because they think he's a great guy. They are saying any change is better change because of what they've seen. They saw terrible things happening with Robert Mugabe, and they thought Robert was the worst. They didn't think anyone could be worse than Robert Mugabe.
Sorry, to interrupt. Can we cross over now?
Okay.
My name is Blessed GEZA, Comrade Bombshell. I come back to you today, as promised. Let me start by thanking you and congratulating you on the successful demonstrations and stay away we carried out on Monday. I want to thank you all for the support. Together we shall overcome. Today, I'm announcing a further step in our struggle to save Zimbabwe from Amazon and his looting mafia. We've taken our struggle to another level. We are impeaching President Emerson MNANGAGWA. The die has been cast, and tomorrow we are setting this process in motion. We are impeaching Emerson on the grounds that he is no longer mentally fit to lead the country. We are constitutionalists, so we are using the constitution to rescue the country. Section 97, subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe provides for the removal of the president on the grounds of inability to perform functions of president because of lack of mental capacity to discharge the duties and functions of the office of the president. Mnangagwa is suffering from vascular dementia. We got copies of his medical results. His doctors have already told him his family is aware, and the looting mafia is also aware. Unfortunately, some members of his family and the looting mafia, led by Kudakwanyita Gwe, are taking advantage of his mental sickness. They are taking advantage of his memory loss and contestedness to make him sign documents they are using to lose the country. Because of this vascular dementia, Mnangagwa is no longer aware of what is going on around him. It is so serious that on Thursday last week, he even forgot what line was for what ministry he ran. He even argues with his aides on whether he is at home or in the office at work. That's how serious it is, comrades. The result is that vultures are circling around him. They are looking in his name. They are setting state-owned companies in his name. They are even hiring and firing government and state employees in his name. That's how bad it has become. Dubious characters, including the elect, are now exercising presidential powers. They follow him to his farm to give out tenders in his name. They take away your farms in his name. They even appoint and disappoint army generals on his behalf. It is a pity for the criminals around him. This says to stop. You also see him. He doesn't even know that the Zimbabwe football national team is no suitable ground in Zimbabwe to use for home matches. He doesn't know all those things. Yet he is the president. Every time he is publicly addressing you, the moment he moves out of script, he starts asking the chief secretary about people around him. He asks anyone around him about anything. This is the president that we have. Those that are around him are taking advantage of this situation. They are now using him to sign anything that they come up with. And they actually devise a way of looking through his weaknesses. The fact that he's not resigning because of his areas, we are impeaching him so he goes to rest. This is his chance. Here are the irrational and calculated decisions that MNANGAGWA has made, which warrant this impeachment. One, economic mismanagement and the fraudulent issuance of federal bills. These were issued to Kudakwashi, Richmond Tagwile, the president's business partner and close associate. This criminal activity resulted in the local currency collapsing. The currency collapse wiped out approximately 4.5 billion units from the market. As a result, your savings between 2019 and 2024 were totally wiped out. Two, looking of POSB, Attorney General Virginia Mabiza took advantage of Emerson's mental illness to draft letters in the president's name and sanction an illegal and fraudulent privatization of POSB debt. We are now aware of this adverted criminal activity since it was widely covered in the media. If this was not enough, MNANGAGWA also sanctioned the looting of 1.9 billion of tax funds through the illegal and fraudulent sale of shares in Guimba mining house. The company is led by a private consortium fronted by MNANGAGWA's Lieutenant-in-Chief, Kudakwashi Tapiri. They've been held by Mutulu George Rwamatanga and John Mangun. Three, abusing the title and office of the president. Criminals are now taking advantage of Emerson's fighting mental state and coming up with dubious presidential branding projects. These projects have one objective: to loot state resources and create billions of American dollars in slush funds for their criminal enterprise and undermining of the Constitution and the people of Zimbabwe. Some of these schemes include presidential input scheme, presidential gold drilling scheme, presidential rural good passport scheme, presidential police scheme, presidential cotton scheme, presidential rural horticulture scheme, presidential community service scheme, presidential rural policy scheme, presidential grain protectant scheme, presidential fertilizer subsidy scheme, presidential housing scheme, presidential youth empowerment scheme, presidential HIPAA passport scheme, presidential solar scheme, the e-passport and border management system is a modernization effort to improve efficiency and security. However, the president and his cabinet Let me start by thanking you and congratulating you on the successful demonstration and stay away we carried out on Monday. I want to thank you all for the support. Together we shall overcome. Today, I'm announcing a further step in our struggle to save Zimbabwe from Emerson and his looting mafia. We have taken our struggle to another level. We are impeaching President Emerson MNANGAGWA. The die has been cast, and tomorrow we are setting this process in motion. We are impeaching Emerson on the grounds that he is no longer mentally fit to lead the country. We are constitutionalists, so we are using the Constitution to rescue the country. Section 97, subsection 1 and D of the Constitution of Zimbabwe provides for the removal of the president on the grounds of inability to perform functions of president because of lack of mental capacity to discharge the duties and functions of the office of the president. MNANGAGWA is suffering from vascular dementia. We got copies of his medical results. His doctors have already told him. His family is aware. And the looting mafia is also aware. Unfortunately, some members of his family and the looting mafia, led by Kudakwatita, are taking advantage of his mental sickness. They are taking advantage of his memory loss and forgetfulness to make him sign documents they are using to loot the country. Because of this vascular dementia, MNANGAGWA is no longer aware of what is going on around him. It is so serious that on Thursday last week, he even forgot who July Moyo was or what ministry he ran. He even argues with his aides on whether he is at home or in the office at work. That's how serious it is, comrades. The result is that vultures are circling around him. They are looting in his name. They are selling state-owned companies in his name. They are even hiring and firing government and state employees in his name. That's how bad it has become. Dubious characters you didn't elect are now exercising presidential power. They follow him to his farm to give out tenders in his name. They take away your farm in his name. They even appoint and disappoint army generals on his behalf. It is a plea for all, for the criminals around him. This has to stop. We have also seen him. He doesn't even know that the Zimbabwe football national team is no suitable ground in Zimbabwe to use for home matches. He doesn't know all those things, yet he is the president. Every time he is publicly addressing you, The moment he moves out of script, he starts asking the chief secretary about people around him. He asks anyone around him about anything. This is the president that we have. Those that are around him are taking advantage of this situation. They are now using him to sign anything that they come up with. And they've actually devised a way of looking through his weaknesses. The fact that he's not resigning because of his ill health, we are impeaching him so he goes to rest. This is his charge sheet. Here are the irrational and captured decisions that Mnangagwa has made, which warrant his impeachment. 1. Economic mismanagement and the fraudulent issuance of treasury bills. These were issued to Kudakwashe Regiment Agwilei, the president's business partner and close associate. This criminal activity resulted in the local currency collapsing. The currency collapse wiped out approximately 4.5 billion units from the market. As a result, your savings between 2019 and 2024 were totally wiped out. 2. Looting of POSB. Attorney General Virginia Mabiza took advantage of Emerson's mental illness to draft letters in the president's name and sanctioned an illegal and fraudulent privatization of POSB bank. We are now aware of this unfortunate criminal activity since it was widely covered in the media. As if this was not enough, Mnangagwa also sanctioned the looting of 1.9 billion of state funds through the illegal and fraudulent sale of shares in Kuimba mining house. The company is led by a private consortium fronted by Mnangagwa's looter-in-chief, Kudakwashe Takwirei. They've been helped by Mutulu Nmule, George Guamatanga, and John Mangun. 3. Abusing the title and office of the president. Criminals are now taking advantage of Emerson's fighting mental state and coming up with dubious presidential branding projects. These projects have one objective: to loot state resources and create billions of American dollars in slush funds for their criminally enterprise and undermining of the Constitution and the people of Zimbabwe. Some of these schemes include presidential input scheme, presidential bore drilling scheme, presidential rural goat pass-on scheme, presidential bleed sticks grease scheme, presidential cotton scheme, presidential rural horticulture scheme, presidential community fisheries scheme, presidential rural poultry scheme, presidential grain protection scheme, presidential fertilizer subsidy scheme, presidential housing scheme, presidential youth empowerment scheme, presidential HIPAA pass-on scheme, presidential solar scheme. The e-passport and border management system was marketed as a modernization effort to improve efficiency and security. However, the president and his criminals hijacked this initiative and turned it into another looting scheme. They are looting millions of US dollars per year from this scheme. This organized crime is financing their criminal enterprise, luxury lives, and their efforts to annihilate the constitution of Zimbabwe at the expense of its people. Again, Kudakwashe Tagwirei and Emerson Jr. are at the center of this looting scheme. 5. Dangerous drug dealing. We also have the unfortunate reality that the president and his teams are dealing in dangerous drugs. Emerson has allowed the Ministry of Health to issue his criminals with permits to deal in dangerous drugs. Wicknell Bio and Hubert Angel are using these permits to sell dangerous drugs to our youth. Ambulances are being used to carry these dangerous drugs across cities. Our youth are being killed with these drugs just for criminals linked to the president to make millions of dollars to support their lavish lifestyle. Surely, a president who is supposed to be a father cannot let this happen around him. No sane person can allow the destruction of his country's future in this way. That's why we are saying Mnangagwa must go. For Zimbabwe, these and more cases listed in this document warrant the impeachment of Emerson. The country cannot afford a mentally ill president. Muri yeZimbabwe tinoenderera mberi semazuva ese tichitsanangura norurimi rwokuhamai. Ndinotanga nekukutendai zvikuru nekunzwisisa kwamakaita musi weMande. Makaratidza kubatana, right? Stay away. Kauda not shut down. Yakabudirira zvikuru. Tinokutendai muri Zimbabwe. Ngatirambe takabatana kusvikira Amazon nezvimbwa zvikara zvake zvikananza tavakunda. Mademonstrations akabudirira kwanga kuine police brutality tichazvigadzirisa nguva dzinotevera. Kune mhuri dzinova mademonstrators akabatwa. Tine urombo but ndio hondo yacho. Tichaona kuti tichaita sei kuti tibatsirane. Pari zvino magweta ari kukumirirai but tichabatsirana nezvimwe zvidiki zvandinokwanisa kubatsirana nazvo. Takafoma komiti inopota izokuonai muri ikoko but tine tarisiro yekuti nemazuva mashoma ari kuteera munenge mabuda muprison mamuri. Vemachechi tinokutendai zvikuru netsigo yamunotipa vana Reverend Utaunashe, vana vaMakandiwa, vana vaMutendi, navamwe vakawanda vanhu vemachechi vandisina kutaura. Tinokutendai, rambai makadaro, rambai muchinyamatsira nyika yedu. Vese nekuwana Joani Marange uko, rambai muchinyamatsira nyika yetu vana Mwaza Mnangagwa uyu aonesa mhuri yeZimbabwe ndondo ainde nokukasika. Zvataronga kuenderera mberi nehondo yedu, tatora hondo iyi takabatana nevana venyu vamakasarudza imwi kuti vanomirira zviro zvenyu. Kwatakuendesa uko hakuna mategasi, hakuna mapurisa, right? Uko bumbiro remutemo renge ichitorwa sebumbiro remutemo. Taiendesa hondo iyi kudare reparliament kuti Mnangagwa aitwe inonzi impeachment. Ndokuti vese impeachment munoiziva, zvikodzero zvokuti zvataendesera nyaya iyi kuparliament inyaya yekuti Emerson ava kurwara nechirwere chinonzi vascular dementia. Vascular dementia chirwere chakaipisisa zvikuru kana uchinge uri mutungamiriri wenyika. Chirwere chokuti dzimwe dzenguva unotokanganwa kuti mudzimai wako ndeupi kana kuti vana vako ndevapi. Pane vanga vari kuState House, right? It was sworn in Lieutenant General Sanyatwe. Akatokoshwa bhuru wake chaichaiwe padhuze anonzi Julai Moyo. Akabvunza kuti kana zviya uyu ndiani? Zvikanzi nevanhu ndiminista Julai Moyo. Zvikanzi Julai Moyo wokupi? Zvikanzi ndiminista wenyu. Zvikanzi minista wechi? Saka ndiye president watinaye aukanga maJulai Moyo. Bhuru wake chaichaiwe, tikatitikewo. Saka muri kuona kuti matsotsi aya akapoteredza vakutora advantage yekukakasika kwake kwaakuita panyaya dzemupfungwa. Vakutora advantage yekumushandisa kuita zvinhu zvouori, right? Nezvimwe zvinhu zvokuramba vachibira nyika, vachidzinga vashandi vasati vashanda, kana kutochinja mageneral basa. Vakangofunga kuti general uyu hatimudi, varingomuchinja iye basa rake avangosaina chete. Saka Emerson ava munhu ari dangerous kunyika, right? Saka saizvozvo taitora nyaya iyi yagadzirwa nevana venyu kuparliament, tiri kuisa kuparliament. Hazvirevi kuti zvimwe zvese izvi tamisa, but pari zvino tati tobotora nhoroondo iyi, right? Yanzi nevana venyu aiwa vakatsamwa zvikuru nokona kubatwa wakaitwa mademonstrations, vakati aiwa shortcut nyaya iyi ngatibatsirana nei iuye kwedu, uyu munhu afambe ainde, nyika yedu yeinderere mberi. Ndatenda hangu mhuri yeZimbabwe. Thank you.